Welcome everyone to the call. If you came here for the Nation Builder for GOP counties and small civic organizations call, well, you're in the right place. My name is Ron Robinson, and I'm your moderator tonight. And tonight we're going to talk a little bit about something special. We're going to stir WordPress into the mix just a little bit. And as is our habit in these calls, we're going to take some questions at the beginning of the. We're going to take questions at. So if there's anyone with any questions that we'll address later in the call, speak up now. I'll be glad to take your questions or any ideas that you have that you want to discuss. Anyone who has a question, the floor is yours. Anyone at all with a question?
Not yet.
Okay, I'm not hearing any response from the audience, so we'll go ahead. Program discussion. Tonight we're going to discuss the essentials that we have to have when we want to have a landing system for digital activists. We all, those of us who are experienced with social media, we know that we know what those little buttons along the side of the screen or along the bottom of the screen wanting you to post a link to the website that you're looking at on Facebook, or tweet out a link or what have you, or start discussion with a link to your resource. But sometimes it helps if you give people a little bit of orientation as to what you're trying to gather, what you want them to do. And sometimes you're really helping a social media activist out if you put all those buttons together on one page that we call a spread the word page. Now, you don't have to call the page a spread the word page, but you can call it lots of other things. I'm working on one website right now where they want to call it a take action page, but it is only social media. It doesn't include other things that you would do out in the street and so forth. It's all in what you want to do. But a social media spread the word page is definitely something that you want to have. Another thing that you want to have is a leaderboard page, and the social media spread the word page and the leaderboard page feed off of each other. Now, as they come out of the box on a site like Nation Builder, there's nothing pointing out that these two pages are interrelated. In other words, what I mean is if you click enough buttons on the social media page, you'll see yourself rising on the leaderboard page, and you may have been number 10 yesterday, and today you're number 9 or number 8. And this is a good way to reward people for getting active on your spread the word social media page. It's a way to recognize people, reward them, and do good things. We'll get into details on this right now. We're just going over the high points right now. Another thing that's built into Nation Builder in the accounts section, where I would, do things like tell you my Twitter address and my Facebook page and stuff like that, is a fundraiser goal page. In other words, this is where I could tell the campaign that, hey, you know what, I don't mind raising money for you. I don't mind, providing people with a link to your donate page. And so I'm going to try to raise $1,000 for you, or I'm going to try to raise $500 for you. And you can set a fundraiser goal, and you can let your people set a fundraiser goal in Nation Builder. I'm working on one project right now where there are some really proactive people working on this campaign, and they haven't showed up at any events. They haven't said boo to the campaign, but yet they've raised thousands of dollars just by emailing out links to the donate page, and people click those links and they come through, they actually donate, and a couple of those people have raised in excess of $2,000 for that campaign. The host an event page, next item I'm going to talk about, the host an event page, is something that's kind of another way for your digital activists to be very proactive. And we've seen a lot of campaigns where conservatives are getting the idea about how to use one of these pages. Usually the way it works is on your events page, where your people are coming to see what events are upcoming on the calendar. You'll place a button on that page that says something to the effect of host your own event. And if they click that button, then they're taken to a form where they can tell you the date of the event that they want to host, what kind of event they want to host, whether it's a coffee or a debate party, or maybe it's just a meetup, you know, at a local watering hole. Those are perfectly okay too on some campaigns. But anyway, it allows the person to indicate everything they want to tell you about hosting their own event. Now, most campaigns will set this host an event page so it simply comes to the attention of the campaign staff, and they look it over and they make sure they vet it, and they have to actually approve it before it's actually published on the calendar. And that is a practice that I do recommend for campaigns. And finally, an orientation page, which is kind of really itself the main landing page for digital activists, where you explain all of the above. And it's actually best if you'll explain it with a dynamic completion menu. In other words, oh yeah, we've noticed that you've joined our site, you've given us your email address, you've given us your zip code so that we know whether you're in or out of district. You've connected to your Facebook account, you've connected to your Twitter account. And so for things that are undone, this becomes a menu where they can click and perform the action that you're describing. Otherwise, it's just a checklist. If they've already completed these steps, then the menu function goes away and you just show a check mark by it or a little icon by it showing, yeah, we acknowledge that you have completed this. Now, of course, this requires that people log in so we actually know who they are. But on this orientation page, it's really important that you explain your priorities. If you want to put a priority on fundraising, say so on your orientation page. Or if you want to place a priority on getting people to host events, say so on your orientation page. The leaderboard page, probably not going to make that a priority, but for some campaigns, the social media, spread the word page is a priority where they want people to work. In Nation Builder, you can actually go in and change the number of points that are awarded. So if you want to change things up on the point system and give more points for social media links and fewer points for soliciting a donation, you can do that in the internals of Nation Builder. Now, we tinkered with that a little bit on a couple of really big campaigns, and I'll be truthful with you. I think Nation Builder pretty much has it wired. We found that if we tinkered much with the number of points that we assigned to certain activities, that there were unforeseen consequences, and we ended up changing most of them back. So let's get into this a little bit and talk about the particulars of what we just went over in highlight. First of all, there is a leaderboard page that is built into Nation Builder, and like this excerpt I've taken from one website here, it's just a list of people, number 1 at the top, number 2 under that, number 3 under that, of people who have been undertaking various activities. Now, if you're a cadre on the campaign, if you're one of the staffers or one of the senior volunteer leaders, then I suggest you do what I haven't done yet on this leaderboard. And there's a checkbox in Nation Builder where I can take myself off the leaderboard, but I've got a conference call with them in a couple of days, and I want to be on the leaderboard for that conference call to show them how easy it is to rise from number 25 to, what am I there? I'm number 4 on the leaderboard. And then after this conference call, I'm going to stop appearing on this leaderboard because it's not fair for somebody who knows what they're doing, who sort of makes their living doing stuff like this, to be on the leaderboard. So do be on the lookout of people that you want to take off the leaderboard, you know, the candidate, the county chair, people like that. Now, for short periods of time, there may be a good reason for the county chair to appear at the top of the leaderboard if that's the natural progression of things. But I think most of the time you want to take the senior people that are involved with leadership with the campaign or the county party. You probably want to take them off the leaderboard and let the leaderboard be for the people, the grassroots people that are actually doing the work. Now, we promised we'd give you some support for other platforms besides Nation Builder, and that's what we want to do here. If you're on a WordPress site, and WordPress is a big platform that a lot of GOP counties and even a lot of GOP states are using. I think even the RNC is still using a WordPress platform. And if you want to put up a leaderboard on WordPress, you can identify a lot of them just by going to Google and typing in WordPress plugin leaderboard. And you will find, you can see there the first 3 returns that I've gotten on my Google search there are all WordPress plugins. You can add a plugin to WordPress with just a couple of clicks. And this is probably a conversation you want to have with your webmaster. This probably isn't something you want to do yourself. But there are definitely leaderboard plugins available for WordPress. That's a very good thing. I would look for a good one and add them in. Let me also just say about WordPress plugins at this time that you do have to be a little bit careful with WordPress plugins. If you, I'm sure there's probably some people on the call that have had this experience. If you're not careful about adding plugins to WordPress, you can actually crash your WordPress website. It will just totally go south, and there's nothing to do but to restore from a backup if you have one, or just totally rebuild the WordPress site from the ground up. That's not a problem with Nation Builder, because Nation Builder is programmed top to bottom, end to end, left to right, by professional programmers. That's not the case with WordPress plugins. So I would look for a plugin that has been updated. When you're looking at a list of plugins, they'll show you when the last update to the plugin was, and they'll show you how many installations there are on the internet of that WordPress plugin. And then there's also a star rating. You know, people can give the plugin 5 stars or 4 stars or 3 stars. Now, I would look for the following 3 things. I would look for something that has a 4-star or 5-star rating. I would look for a plugin that's been updated within the last 6 months, and I would look for a plugin that's been installed more than 10,000 times. If you touch all those bases, you'll probably get a pretty good WordPress plugin. But be careful about plugins. Nation Builder doesn't have this problem because Nation Builder doesn't accept plugins. Everything is programmed from top to bottom in Nation Builder by professional programmers. There's no such thing as a plugin in Nation Builder, and thus you're not exposed to any amateur programming. Next, let's talk about a fundraising goal. Now, this is only in Nation Builder. I can't think of any plugin for WordPress that would support this, but in everybody who's logged in to Nation Builder, even when they're logged into the public part of the website, not the control panel, but the public portion of the website, has what they call account settings, and they're usually a link to the account settings at the very, very bottom of most Nation Builder websites. And if you're logged in, you'll see a link to account settings, and if you're not logged in, you'll just see a link to sign in. At the top of those settings, you can set a fundraising goal. Now, if you're savvy and you notice that a few people are actually raising money for your county or for your campaign, you can actually, we've done this successfully many times, set up fundraising teams and get 5 people on team A and get 5 people on team B and appoint a leader for each team and get them to compete with each other in raising money. And we've seen fundraising really prosper by getting people to do this. And Nation Builder does have the infrastructure. It does have everything you need to put fundraising teams together and get them to compete, and they can compare what they've raised. They can see the numbers online right in your public reports without having to log into the control panel. So setting a fundraising goal is another good way to really fundraise, obviously, but also get your social media activists working for you in a meaningful way. One of the great things about a host your own event page is, of course, like I explained earlier, it allows the public to sign up from anywhere to host an event. Now, I was lucky enough a few years ago, I got to work for a candidate named Chris Mitchum, And before you ask, yes, he is Robert Mitchum's son. And he was actually, he's well traveled and he's well known across the country because he's done some movies himself. And we had people all across the country wanting to host events to raise money for him. And so, of course, needless to say, we used the host your own event button to great effect on that campaign. And people would just click the button, sign up. The staff would review the particulars with the person that wanted to host, and usually after a telephone conversation, and I'll confess that usually the staff had to write something up. They had to add some verbal text, some copy to the write-up, because people filling these out tend to be a little bit short when it comes to the text that they want to write to describe the event. And the staff would spruce up the event writing just a little bit, correct some misspellings and perhaps. And the staff reviews the proposed event, but somebody else did do, most of the typing, so the staff doesn't have to type everything. Then after approval, you publish the event on your public calendar. And for hosts that don't want their addresses published, on a public website, and some hosts are sensitive to that, there's a couple of approaches that you can use. I think the best approach is to simply, instead of publishing a public address on the website before the person even RSVPs or buys a ticket, you can just say, the address will be disclosed after you buy tickets, and you simply put the address in the confirmation email that they receive after they've purchased a ticket or after they've RSVP'd. Now, that gives your hosts a little bit of additional security so that you're not publishing the address to their home or something right out there on the open internet before people actually even RSVP or buy a ticket. Let me stop right now and ask if there's any questions from the audience on what I've presented so far. Any questions? Let me unmute everybody here. I think Okay, yes, everybody's unmuted now. Any questions? No questions? Okay, pipe up. I'll go ahead and leave everybody unmuted. We're not getting much background noise, so we'll go ahead and leave everybody unmuted. Anybody's free to go ahead and pipe up with a question if you have a question as we go along here. Now, the dynamic supporter status menu, this is an example that I'm showing you now. Before I was a confirmed supporter, that menu item was red, and it was asking a question, are you really a supporter? And I would click on that link and I would go in and to that page and indicate that was a supporter. And now when I come back to the menu, it shows that I am a confirmed supporter. Same thing with Facebook. That was red. I followed that link. I went in and connected my Facebook account. And then I just went down the list and did everything it asked for here. And next to the last one was volunteered. But you can see on this particular website, I haven't made a donation yet. I'm still going to do that, but I haven't done it yet. So my supporter status menu here is pretty complete. And you can offer exactly the same thing to your digital volunteers. This is a little bit like a leaderboard. For one thing, it makes sure that people have less of a chance to overlook something they could do for your campaign or for your county that they haven't done yet. And so this is very useful in helping keeping digital activists oriented towards supporting your cause. Even websites for NGOs and organizations like activist organizations use the same type of menu, so they continuously are moving people toward completing actions that are on their action agenda for regular people out there in their audience. It's a great thing to have. They're very easy to program in Nation Builder. So that completes I'm going to back up in the slide presentation here and go back to that summary that we had at the first, just to summarize. And by the way, we will have a we will put the recording of this lesson up on the home page for the NB4GOP call, probably about an hour after the call ends. So we want to have a social media spread the word page which collects together all of the different types of social media post buttons, such as post to Twitter, post to Twitter, post to Facebook, post to G+, and then you can also add others like LinkedIn and Reddit and Dig and so forth. You can actually add, there are actually some controls that you can add that have like 90 different sharing buttons in them. I don't believe in going quite that much overboard, but a spread the word page with just the basics of Twitter and Facebook is a really good thing to have. Now, I would pay particular attention to Facebook. We did a big campaign a couple of years ago that raised $26 million. And you know, there's always there's always sort of been this meme in the world that conservatives aren't very good with social media, and there is some truth to that. That's why. That's one of the reasons why we actually have this call, but that's changing. And one of the things we discovered on this big campaign were, and this works for small campaigns if you're running for state senate, if you're running, you know, a GOP county website, pay particular attention to Facebook, because Facebook, let's face it, Facebook is how the grandparents stay in touch with the grandkids. So they know quite a bit about using Facebook, and you can use Facebook to huge advantage. If you learn a little bit about promoting yourself on Facebook, you know, you could actually buy advertising on Facebook for a very reasonable price. And I'm talking about if you have $50 or even $25 in the county budget to buy a little bit of Facebook advertising just to Facebook users within your county, it's probably money well spent, especially since if somebody is cruising their cruising their Facebook page and looking at their friends' Facebook postings and stuff like that, and looking at their timeline and seeing what's going on with their friends on Facebook, and your county GOP ad appears there, and they click through to your website, you just got somebody really, really valuable, because you just got somebody who knows how to use Facebook, and that's one of the best places to find digital activists. That was our main supply of digital activists on some of the big campaigns I've done. So do pay particular attention to Facebook. If I go out and post several times on Facebook, you know, from your county website, I will rise on your leaderboard page. One of the things that you can do is prioritize people emailing links to your pages with the recruiter ID, and that will cause people to rise on the leaderboard page. If you want to rise on your own leaderboard page, all you need to do is go like every post made on your Facebook page, and you will definitely rise on the leaderboard page. On that one leaderboard page I showed you a moment ago, this one here, number 3, Connie Sunday had earned 184 social capital or political capital points. She earned those 184 points simply by liking posts on Facebook. They were the candidates' posts on the candidates page, but she's number 3 just from clicking like in Facebook. And so she did that over a period of time, but that's one good way to do it. Fundraiser goal page, that's probably maybe that's a little bit advanced for some of our people on this call who are just, you know, getting oriented with running Nation Builder for their GOP county. But it is something to cock an eye toward, and do go look at the people who are rising on your leaderboard and find out why they are rising on your leaderboard. And I'll show you how to do that in just a moment in the Nation Builder control panel. But the fundraiser goal page is probably something for bigger campaigns like a Senate campaign or gubernatorial campaign or a Secretary of State campaign where you're campaigning statewide. But it's a good thing to know even for your county. The host and event page, we went over that. So let's go in and look at some particulars in the Nation Builder control panel. I'm going to restart this filter that I just set up, but this particular control panel that we're looking at right now is Del Norte County. Wonderful people up there in Northern California. They have a small county, very, very small county. You're going to be surprised. But I want you to look at this number right up here of how many people they have pretty solid contact through social media. Even for a very, very tiny county, they have really solid contact with 605 people. So I'm going to show you how we do this. There's a little secret involved here. You kind of have to know about it, and I'll show you how to build a filter. So what we do, of course, is we're going to the filter page, and we're going to search for people that are already active with us on social media. We want to know, hey, who's clicking like on Facebook, or who's retweeting our tweets, or who's following us on Twitter. So we start a new filter by clicking on the funnel icon right here. And remember, filters are how we do searches. So I'm going to create a new filter here, and I'm going to click to add a criteria. And I'm going to go down. Now, of course, if you're looking for social media activity, one of the things you're certain to click on here is social, and that's one of the right things to do. So I'm going to look for people that where we have their Twitter info, and then I'm going to add another group row, and I'm going to go to social again, and I'm going to look for people that have Facebook info. And I'm going to go ahead and run that filter, and I have 98 people. But one person could be doing more than one thing. So let's add some stuff, add some other stuff, and let's cast a broader net with our search, and let's look for some other types of activity. Now, I was looking at social just a moment ago, but this time I'm going to go into activity because we have some social activities under activity. And I'm going to scroll down to the very bottom here, and I'm going to include people who have liked our Facebook post. And I'm going to add another group row, and I'm going to go back to activity and scroll to the very bottom here, and I'm going to choose anybody who has interacted with any of our broadcasters on Twitter, and that would mean liked a tweet, retweeted a tweet. So we'll choose that. Now let's run that filter now. Oh, I only came up with 3, and that's because I made a mistake. I want to select people who match any of the following, not all of the following. We want people who have done any of these, not all of them. So let's run that again. And we look at there, we came up with even more people than in the previous filter. We have 928 people who either we have their Twitter info, or we have their Facebook information, or they've liked one of our Facebook posts, or they've interacted with us on Twitter. And for a little tiny county like Del Norte, California, or Del Norte, as I like to say, 928 people, that's a solid number. That's actually a surprising number of people who have interacted with these. Now, I can also add another group row because maybe I want to contact these people. So I could add, let's do this differently. I'm gonna add a new criteria, and I'm gonna say, I'm gonna ask, is the person emailable? And it's going to have to be all up here. I want the person to be either emailable or callable. I'm going to see if they've got a telephone number. Let's see here. Oh, telephone. Yeah, phone is here. Okay. Callable. And we'll take either one of those. We don't require both, so I'm changing that to any instead of all. Now, that's going to cut this number down considerably because a lot of these 928 people we don't have contact information for. But let's find out how many of these people we can actually contact via email or telephone. So I'm running the filter, and I've still got 648 people. I'm going to take out is callable, and I'm going to run that filter again. And I still have 611 people that I can email, and if nothing else, I want to thank them for interacting with us on Twitter or Facebook. But, you know, when the week comes that I'm looking for people to be digital activists and come help us on our website with the social media and other things, these are the best candidates to ask to be digital volunteers on your website. So that's something you should know. Let's see here. Let me stop and ask again if there's any questions at this point. Any questions?
Ron, this is Paul.
Hi, Paul.
Hi. Yeah, this is my first time, so forgive me for asking some probably very dumb questions. But
well, you know, questions here are really, really welcome, and I want everybody to remember that even if you think it's a stupid question, there's somebody else on the call who's dying to know the answer, and they're afraid to ask the question. That's my philosophy. So please, any question at all, Paul.
So basically, we can build our own and add to the filters. As there, obviously, there's a limited number of times that you want to do that, probably, but because you can narrow it down to where you don't have anybody. But ultimately, I can see the real plus of doing that. And the objective here is to get people who are reasonably adept at Facebook, Twitter, that kind of thing, because then they're a better fit with less training. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, that's my take on it, Paul. Okay. And that's a really good question. That's a great question. Thank you for asking that. Now, we tend to talk about digital things here, but we also need to be cognizant of there's other operations that the county GOP needs to support. You know, sometimes they're very interested in getting people to go out the door and come down to the farmers market or come to the monthly governance meeting or what have you. You know, so one thing that's really great to do, and we took such big advantage of this on the Draft Carson campaign because we were running pretty good numbers on digital activism and stuff like that, but then, we really wanted to know how many people are really getting out in the street, and so we started taking a much closer look at things like RSVPs and how many people were actually showing up at events and how many people were RSVPing. So, so you can it's not just digital activism that you can use this for. It's also how many people can we get out in the street? I want to tell you about one particular event that happened on the Draft Carson campaign that really kind of surprised me. We had this was before Dr. Carson threw his hat into the ring, and we had an event. We had an event that was on our calendar that was in Colorado Springs, and it was just come, make your own sign, show up, and show Dr. Carson that you want him to run for president, okay? And I'll confess, we had a pretty good guy in Colorado Springs. As a matter of fact, we had about 3 or 4 pretty good guys in Colorado Springs. And I'll swear to gosh, I think they cranked up their personal email reader and they sent an event link to everybody on their email list, even if they were out of state, We had 2,000 RSVPs for that event. Wow. Pardon me. Hang on just a second. My cough button there so I could cough. We had 2,000 RSVPs for that event, and I actually got in the car and drove to Colorado Springs for that event. And I did a very, very formal count. I counted 1,800 people. I don't remember the name of the paper in Colorado Springs, but they reported 1,800 people also. And it was a big enough crowd that they had a couple of patrol units there. The cops showed up and the fire department showed up, and they weren't making any trouble. They were just there for public safety. That's what you want, So, and they're practiced at estimating crowds too. So I went up, I found the sergeant for the police department who was kind of in charge of the detail there, and I asked him what his crowd estimate was, and he said 1,800 people. And then I asked the battalion chief from the fire department, what's your estimate of the crowd? And he said 1,700, 1,800 people. So a lot of people who were practiced at estimating crowds. I'm not one of those. I actually counted and came up with about 1,800, but a lot of people who were practiced came up with a number that was just 200 under the number of RSVPs that we had for that event. So, pardon me. That day we drove up to Fort Collins, Colorado, and then we ended the day in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and we. I, being a digital guy who was kind of in charge of this operation from the digital side, I, had my little tablet notebook with me, and I could look to see how many RSVPs we had on each event. And each event, the ratio of RSVPs to the size of the crowd that showed up, the ratio was all the same. And so we got to figure, well, we can count on, roughly 90% of what we're expecting to actually show up at these events. Now, it's different on different campaigns. You've got to do that calculation differently. Your county GOP or your state GOP is going to achieve different numbers. Here in Los Angeles County, I would knock that from 90% real attendance down to 70% just knowing Los Angeles, if it was our county's GOP. But then we'd go back and confirm with actual counts. But one way or another, you can get some indicators of how much of your digital activity you can push out into the street by looking at things like RSVP numbers. And then you report to your county chair or to your state chair, this is what we expected, this is what we got. We're going to go with this ratio as the ratio of, how many people were actually driving out onto the street and with our digital activity. And to be truthful, I will confess, I will say this all day long. Digital activity is great. It's good to have good digital activity. But the reason that we have digital activity is really, 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 at the end of the day, the reason we have digital activity is to push activism out into the streets, out into the events that we're having, to the political rallies, to the candidates. We want to turn the vice chair of the college Republicans or the young Republicans. We want to turn him from a digital activist to somebody who is handing out hand cards at the quad on campus. Right. So eventually, whatever the activity is, we eventually want to drive that person out onto the street. But how do you identify those people? How do you move them from becoming a digital activist to becoming an activist out in the street? Well, really, the only way that we know of is to engage them as digital activists, show them, that you are supplying them with the tools that they need, and you can have the tools scattered all over the site. And I know from having visited the sites of a lot of GOP counties that they have a leaderboard page, they have a spread the word page, they have a fundraising goal page, they have a host an event page. Because guess what? From day one, all these pages are built into Nation Builder in a brand new site. Now, some of these counties have actually taken these resources off of their menu, so you can't get to them. But if you know if you know that the leaderboard is always at the website address /leaderboard, you can still pull up their leaderboard. And so, I've discovered on a lot of GOP sites, it's not on their menu anywhere, even after you've logged in, it's not on their menu, but it's still there because I've gone to them and found them,
Right. Right.
So what you want to do is you do want to make these resources available. You do not need to mess up your pretty website that you have now by putting links all over the place to these resources. That's why I recommend an orientation page, which is right here on today's synopsis, is you link to all these resources from an orientation page, and you use that orientation page to explain the resources that you provide and set forth your priorities. And those priorities could change 6 months from now, so it's a real easy page. You go back, go in and edit it a little bit, and move host an event to the top, when we get within 90 days of election day. So it's very easy to change priorities. And digital activists, if you're supplying them with this information, and you are, if you're supplying them with the information and you're explaining your priorities, then they will come back and visit the page time after time to make sure that they're current on what your existing priorities are.
Right. So let me ask you, I don't want to monopolize things here, but in terms of, do you have a list of what's the word I'm looking for, of these webinars like this that where I should go, and is there a priority that I should look at to kind of get up to speed with a lot of this, at least become familiar with the
Are you on a Nation Builder site now, or are you just prospectively looking at Nation Builder to possibly go to in the future?
Well, here's my situation. I'm a state committee man in the county in Florida, and nobody, to my knowledge, has done this yet. We just kind of got introduced to it, and so I'm looking at trying to get up to speed enough to be able to find somebody. I'm older and retired, and I'm looking to be able to get. And most of our county is, I want to say, 2/3 of our membership in the county party and our clubs are retired. So the smaller number of people working, and even a smaller number of younger people. But we are focused on that. We have an excellent teenage Republican group, and so these are people, obviously, the millennials and and whatever the next generation is, the current group, that have this stuff comes very quickly to. And so my interest is, and I've got a new young man in his mid-20s. And this stuff, he just lives and breathes it. So, and he's a sharp guy, and so I'm looking to be able to help this recruit more younger people. Let's say the 20 to 50 group,
right.
And so, and obviously they'll come in spurts, and because a lot of it becomes social. What I see is the digital activism here is a way to turn people. Because obviously I'm on Facebook, and not that I'm real adept at it, but bottom line is
a lot of people on Facebook.
Right, right.
Especially in our age group. I'm in the same age group with you, Paul, but especially in our age group, because you know what? They all moved to Florida from someplace else, and it's the only way they get to see the grandchildren.
Sure, exactly. My situation is if we can get people who are like Facebook, and I can't keep up with the feed, and so I don't do it on my phone. I only do it on my computer, and maybe 3 times a week. So there's a lot I miss on Facebook, but I do check it 2 or 3 times a week. Messenger, same thing. So I we're extending a new Republican club right now, and I've said to them, don't depend on things like Messenger or Facebook to be your communications tool for notification of meetings or things like that exclusively, because there are people that don't get that stuff, like myself, on a daily basis. And I'll go 3 or 4 days and be doing it every day, multiple times, and then I'll be going that many days and not be able to do it at all. So, and I'm not alone in that. So that's really the key. And they're working on that. So, it's a combination, because they've got some younger people. But my objective is to kind of be able to bring the younger folks in, and I think if we give the sharp ones the tools and hold our hand up, they'll be able to dumb it down for us as well. And
is there a university in your county, Paul?
Yes. Yes,
okay.
There are several.
So I would work hard on trying to recruit a few of those people to. You know what? The military discovered something early on. I think it was back in our revolutionary days. But if you throw somebody a lot of responsibility real fast, they're sort of going to be awed by the responsibility that they just gained possession of, and they're going to be careful and they're going to be productive. And that's something to consider when considering, should I get a couple of young Republicans or college Republicans to help lead the social media section of our website. And so that can be and you know what? You can even we're ginning this up on a campaign right now, and in another part of the country. But we're actually we're going to be formally soliciting interns, and with our eye cocked toward college Republicans and YRs and YAF, and it's going to be a formal intern program, and we're going to say right in the intern explanation, if you're a highly productive intern, of course we're talking about unpaid internships, but if you're a highly productive intern, we are going to make stipends available after 60 days and get them working toward the idea that they're actually, going to get a 60 or a 90-day stipend if their first 30 to 60 days are extremely productive. And, you don't need to set an amount on the stipend. Of course, you better make it something respectable, a couple of $100, but you're going to, at the end of the day, you're going to get $1,000 or $2,000 worth of work for $200, and plus, of course, you have to give them a glowing reference when they put you on their resume. But that's an even trade, So that's one thing that I would consider, if I was trying to build a county. Getting the young people involved, but on the other hand, I would make an attempt to get the young people involved. But if that's not happening, you don't need to rely on them. Old folks like us can do this too. Okay. Am I managing to answer your question? Because I got a feeling that I'm skirting part of your question, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to convey that. I want to answer your question directly. What part of your question am I leaving unanswered?
Well, actually, I don't think any. I'm just and I'm thinking and processing at the same time, and that's a challenge for me because I'm not a multitasker. So I recognize the things I can't get.
Do you know who it is at the state level who manages your Florida GOP website? Because they're on Nation Builder.
I don't know the name of the person. I just got the email almost a week ago, just missing your last Thursday's call. So
I've been expanding that email list slowly because I don't want to get my email list shut down for sending to too many people at once.
Sure, yeah, I've experienced that today.
You know about that? Yeah, we all know about that.
Tried to send
if you're considering Nation Builder for your county, it's only $30 a month, and you can have 2 websites for that amount. And now that's not going to include voter data for your county, But I think most likely your state supplies you with voter data, or you can get voter data from GOP call center. I mean, GOP data center.
I'm sure we'll
either way, you don't need to put your voter data in Nation Builder. That would jack your invoice up beyond reach. But the nice thing is for a county, if you, I believe the number is 2,000. I think they let you have 2,000 email addresses in Nation Builder for $30 a month, along with 2 websites. And then if you want to add, I think it's $10 more a month if you want to add 2,000 more email addresses. It's something like that. It's perfectly reasonable.
Yeah,
2,000
manageable.
Yeah, 2,000 or 4,000 email addresses is pretty good for a county. The thing is what a lot of counties do is they just fire off their emails. However big their email list is, they just fire off their emails from MailChimp or Constant Contact or iContact or Nation Builder or whatever it is, and they don't really try to engage people, and they don't send to a part of their list. They don't micro target their active social media users and try to get them engaged as digital activists. They don't engage the people who RSVP separately. The only thing they do reliably is they just email their donors over and over. Those are the only activists that they're good at emailing a targeted email to. And you can't blame them for that, but you know, it's kind of tough being a one-trick pony. Your county doesn't prosper all that much, and your monthly meetings seem like ghost towns, and we can change that if we actually engage people, but engagement's a little bit tough. I think one of the big successes that we had engaging people on the Draft Carson campaign was I was when my boss was trying to hire me, I hadn't told him I would come to work for him, but I told him, look, I've got a non-negotiable item here. I said, I want your support. I need you to back me if it ever becomes a problem. I don't think it will, but if it ever becomes a problem, I want your 100% backing that we are going to return all telephone calls within 24 hours, and we are going to return all emails within 24 hours. And we had texting built into our Nation Builder system too. So all text messages are going to be returned within 24 hours. And then, you know, after, needless to say, the conversation wasn't very lengthy. After that, I got hired pretty quick. And I had to really exercise myself hiring activist staff to actually answer those emails and actually return those phone calls within 24 hours. But we actually had a pretty good track record for almost making it 100%. Phone calls and so forth returned within 24 hours. There were some periods of times after some really successful emails where we got lots of emails and lots of phone calls that we couldn't return within 24 hours. But they all got returned within 72 hours every time. So that's pretty reasonable. And so this is the toughest thing for many counties is they have trouble performing on that level, and if you there's a good reason for that. They you know, the county chair is overwhelmed. I'm not being blaming by saying that, but I think it's part of the it's part of trying to recruit these social media activists. They are going to become the ones that return the phone calls, and they're going to become the ones that answer the emails, because for one thing, they're digital people. They're going to go to the website. They're going to get the phone calls to return. They're going to get the emails to answer. They're going to get those all from the Nation Builder back office, and so therefore, you know, you don't need an office worker. You need a digital worker nowadays in this century, you know. But if you do that, you'll find that generally our experience was that the activists could produce better answers, more respectful answers, and more polite telephone call return than some of the senior management people could. You know, at our end, sometimes we get a little bit jaundiced. That's true. It happens. So I hope I'm giving you some guidance that'll serve you. Whether your website is going to end up being on WordPress or Nation Builder, I think cocking an eye toward how you're going to use your digital activists is spending a little bit of time, just 10% of your time, considering that might serve you pretty well.
Okay. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's going to be kind of a boardroom decision, but we want to take into account getting the younger folks involved, because we know that that's where it's easier. We have a few exceptions to that, because we do have, I want to say, at least two people who are seniors that are extremely active. But they're also, because they're in the small minority, they're also overwhelmed.
Right. Exactly. So
we want to enhance that, and of course, those of us that are reaching out and trying to grow the party are also realizing that we can't do everything, and so I'm trying to be a catalyst as opposed to being hands-on and being, the one that makes it happen. So
that's a good thing, because if you can just provide the push that gets one more activist in the door, whether it's the door of the county party headquarters where you need a parking space to walk through the door, or whether it's walking through the door as somebody who's really going to become a digital activist, then you're headed the right direction and you're doing the right thing, because we certainly need more of those activists. Most of the county workers, just about every county I talk to, the county workers are way, way, way overworked, and everybody knows it.
Right, indeed. We're up to about 100 members in our REC, and 20 are the real workers, and another 20 turn out to events, and everybody else comes to be informed.
Exactly. Well, now there may be some other people with some helpful wisdom on the call. Is there anybody else who's hearing this conversation and has something they want to interject? This is perfectly okay if this is a free-form conversation. We're glad to have everybody's participation. So I see a couple of names that look familiar on the call. If you feel like speaking up, if you have anything you want to add, your input's welcome. Well, I see by the clock on the wall it's almost time for us to stop. We've only got about 3 minutes left. So let me just remind everybody that we do have a Google group. You'll see it on the homepage for the call at theget.io/train. That's the same page that you came to when you clicked the big blue Join Now button. Further down on that page, you'll find some archive. Oh, that was what I didn't answer for you, Paul, is which videos should you watch on the call page? Join the Google group. Let me get that completed. Join the Google group so you're in the loop. You can ask a question. Everybody on the list will see your question. Everybody on the list can just click reply to answer your question. We are archiving our videos one at a time, and sometimes we'll do a special video. Last week I did a special video on merging contacts in Nation Builder, and so I would just look over the videos, take note of what's there, watch the ones you need to watch today, and chances are in 3 weeks or 3 months you're going to think, oh, you know what, I need to go back and watch this other video I took note of. And because something has come up that you need to deal with and you're not sure what the best practices are, and that's when one of our videos is probably going to help you.
Okay, so sounds great.
Do take advantage of those videos on the call homepage. And let's see here. Yes, the clock on the wall says it's time to go. So I want to thank everybody for being on the call with us. Please be sure and tell your friends who need some nation builder knowledge that tell them about this call. We're doing this as a public service for the GOP because the GOP has been good to us. We want to be good back. And
here.
I think you know, we did get welcome news today that the Democrat advantage on the generic congressional ballot had gone down from 15 points to simply 2 points, and that's with an error. That's with an error window of 3.5 points. So Daily Caller was calling it a dead heat, and that's welcome news. But as far as how hard I'm going to work during 2018, it doesn't mean a damn thing. I'm still going to work my tail off like we're 15 points behind. So thank you, everybody, for being on the call. We'll go ahead and draw this to a close. And have a great Thursday, have a great Friday, and have a great weekend. Good night, everybody.